WWE made a major announcement on SmackDown, but now this is becoming very confusing and we got to talk about it. Also, in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about TNA and some new bands that they've placed for their television show. And yes, we do got to talk about NXT Battleground versus Double or Nothing. All right, so here's the deal. Obviously, a lot of people know exactly what's going on when it comes to AEW. They're trying to find their momentum again, right? And I think that's very obvious and that's fine, right? Like that's obviously they've gone through their ups and downs. And basically, WrestleTix comes out with ticket sales updates all the time. And I see a lot of people who have this very anti WWE approach, right? However, I think we need to discuss this because basically, Double or Nothing and NXT Battleground are head to head at the same time on Sunday, and both of them are neck and neck with ticket sales. Like literally, they're both over 7,000 tickets, and they're like within reach of each other. To the point where a lot of people expect both shows to sell out, which is obviously a phenomenal thing, right? That's a very good thing for the industry. But it is very interesting that NXT continues to be closer to Dynamite and their pay-per-views than the main roster shows. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about when it comes to AEW's growth. Their growth is essentially on the same level as NXT, which it kind of always has been. I mean, even when they were going head to head on Wednesday nights, AEW was always able to beat NXT, but they weren't necessarily able to get in reach of Raw or SmackDown. And that kind of becomes a big concern for me as a fan, like when I look at like the business model of things, because 6 years in, I feel like AEW should be getting closer and closer to Raw and SmackDown. But when it comes to TV and everything of that nature, they're just kind of struggling. Double or Nothing is a show that historically, would be in Las Vegas, and now they're trying a different market. And you kind of have to wonder if maybe AEW will kind of go back to Las Vegas. I don't know if it's redundant considering WWE just did Las Vegas and people, you got to remember Las Vegas is a tourist spot. So people already spent money to go to Vegas, probably not going to spend money to go to Vegas again for an AEW show, right? I don't know. I think all these things need to be in consideration. However, with NXT Battleground having strong ticket sales, I mean, it's a very good thing for WWE. It's a very good thing for the NXT brand and for the wrestlers there. I don't really think it's a big deal that you know, they're competing with AEW. I just found it fascinating that both of them are pretty much neck and neck with ticket sales, considering Double or Nothing is one of the premier live events for them. That brings us to our next topic, ladies and gentlemen. TNA has banned a couple new things on TV. This new development from Fightful is actually very interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see where this goes because, quite honestly, I don't really know the thought process of this. I think, the other day we were talking about, or about a month ago or a couple weeks ago, we talked about blood being banned from TNA. And it kind of makes sense, right? Like they want to have it more special, whatever it may be. But these bans are very interesting. According to Fightful, they've reported that TNA has now gone forward and they circulated a memo with a outline of new changes. And these changes include throat slashing and slaps. Now, this is crazy. We don't know what it means. We don't know if the throat slashing, why it's a big deal. We don't know why the slaps are a big deal. But basically, any person in TNA doing this without the consent of management, it's $100 fine, which really isn't that big of a deal, $100. But obviously, these are some very interesting rules. Now, again, it makes sense with blood, right? You want to limit blood. You want blood to feel a little bit more special. I think that totally makes sense as a company as to why you would make that decision. But throat slashing or slaps, I feel like that is such an interesting choice, and I really don't think I don't understand it. If I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't understand it, and I don't know. I don't know why they would do such a thing. I feel like TNA has become such a great company. They've always been great, but they're starting to find their role within the wrestling industry. They're finding their momentum, Under Siege, sold out, people were getting rejected at the door. Like these are phenomenal things happening for TNA. Slaps and throat slashing to me just seems like such a minuscule thing. And maybe there's great reason for it, right? But according to the report, there really hasn't been anything that really suggest why that would be the case. And I think that's a really weird thing. Like everybody does throat slashes. I mean, you see it in WWE and AEW and New Japan and AAA, and I mean, pretty much every company has throat slashing. So TNA, you know, their whole thing is trying to refine the creative presentation of the product while appealing to a broader audience to attract more advertisers. But like a throat slash, a slap, are those things that are really detrimental to advertising? I just don't think that's the case. I don't know. Very, very, very interesting choice. Very weird decision. I love TNA, but this is one of those things where I'm hoping maybe Carlos Silva will offer some sort of clarification on it, just like he did with Blood. You know, if you're trying to make things feel more special, I get it, but I don't see people spamming these taunts, you know? And that brings us to our final topic, ladies and gentlemen. WWE announced for World Collide a six-man tag match. And I'm very happy about the match they announced. I think it's going to be really cool. Legado del Fantasma, Pagano, Psycho Clown, Dr. De Wagner. Very big announcement, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. Part of the announcement was that the show will be streaming on YouTube. And I'm not complaining because that means it's free, right? For free for English viewers and Spanish viewers. That's cool. But this is a major announcement that really makes me curious about why WWE Worlds Collide is not on Peacock or Netflix. Why they don't have some sort of deal for this, I don't know. I don't know if maybe WWE has an agreement for X amount of shows with Peacock for premium live events. I don't know. But they are doing this on YouTube. And I think that's cool. I'm not complaining about it. I think it's awesome that it's going to be accessible for everybody. Literally, you just pull it up on YouTube. For me personally, I don't know how you guys watch YouTube. I watch YouTube mainly on like my Google TV stick. So I'm watching it on a big TV. Um, so I have no problem with that. I like the fact that just like all the other streaming things, you can watch it on your phone, tablet, whatever. But it's an interesting choice. It's a weird choice. And I don't know why WWE would make that choice. I feel like it's such a weird thing. There's got to be a greater purpose for this. At this time, nobody's really come out and offered clarification, which is what makes it so much more difficult. But I think for them to do it on YouTube, I don't even know how you're going to make money on that. I don't know how you're going to make money on that. So I don't really understand the play here. I'm not really sure why WWE made that choice, but that was the announcement that they made. Kind of slipped under the radar, but that's kind of what we're getting right now. So you guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ango Show. And if you guys want more videos like this, you already know what you got to do. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.